The best of downtown from 7 to 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. This is the best of downtown.
Hi, good Sunday morning. Welcome to the best of downtown on this 24th day of August. Rich Kimball and Brian Stackpole with you on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. All around the state of Maine and the world. Follow the program on Twitter at Downtown Rich K. We're on Facebook, too, at Downtown with Rich Kimball. Great to have you with us on this Sunday morning as we look back on some of our favorite conversations from the week that was. We'll talk some baseball with former Black Bear Mike Bordick. Tim Whelan weighs in on the New England Patriots. Former basketball star from Maine, former NBA ref. Broadcast legend as well. Bob McAllister will have a visit. More Patriots talk from Zuri Berry of the Globe and Gary Tanguay of Comcast Sportsnet New England, all coming up between now and 7 o'clock this morning. We kick things off with a chance to talk some baseball with one of our favorites, a Black Bear great who had a terrific major league career as well, 14 seasons in the major leagues. Mike Bordick, now part of the Baltimore Orioles broadcast crew. We caught up with him this week and asked him if he thought these first-place Orioles would be this good.
Well, I thought they were going to have another winning season. I think they've really come together, though, as a team. The starting pitching has been phenomenal for the last month and a half, and that's really what's carried them. I think they've had a very productive offense over the last few years, and defensively they've been as good as any team for the last couple of years. But it's, with any team, it's a matter of the pitching, and you're going to go as far or not as far with pitching, and the Orioles starters and bullpen have done a great job.
Well, we saw a great example of that last night. Chris Tillman, who was counted on to be number one, number two guy, kind of a slow start to the year, but he is on a roll. I think it's something like 13, 14 straight starts, allowing 3 runs or less.
Yeah, he really emerged last year and was slotted in as the number one guy. But like most of our starters, for the first few months, there were some inconsistencies with all of them. And all together, it seemed like all at once, like the end of June, they all just kind of hit their stride. Something clicked for these guys. They all have major league experience. They're not rookies anymore. And I just think there comes a time in a player's life where they really start taking charge. And ironically, it was about the same time when Matt Wieters went down or soon thereafter. And I think a lot of these pitchers really relied on Matt to call games, and I think it just made them grow up and really take charge for themselves, call the pitches that they wanted to, and they all took charge of that, and they've done a super job, and Chris Tillman is certainly leading the way with that.
Well, the bullpen's been tough all the way to the closer, and that worked out well. You let Jim Johnson walk, and Zach Britton steps in, and I think now has 26 saves on the year.
Yeah, well, losing Jim Johnson was a tough decision for the Orioles. I mean, over 100 saves the last 2 years. And I don't know, I think that Buck Showalter's philosophy on bullpens is that you can really kind of, reform them each year. You don't have to stick with guys and go long-term deals in the bullpen. So he knew he had good arms out there. A lot of these arms were converted starters, so certainly have the capability to start once again. But Zach Britton's one of these guys. He had a dominant fastball, but the command of his secondary pitches were never quite there. Well, right now he's saving ball games with primarily just one pitch. It's fastball, 95, 97 miles an hour, but it has tremendous late movement, gets a lot of ground ball outs, and it's tough for guys to pick him up. So, he has settled in nicely in that closer role, and he was actually in the bullpen, not as a closer to start the season. Tommy Hunter was the closer to start the year, and Zach Britton ended up winning that job.
What's the transition been like for you from playing and coaching to moving into the broadcast booth?
It's been fun, and I have a good relationship with Buck, and he still lets me stay involved in the player development and the coaching. I go to the full spring training and help with the infielders and hit ground balls and throw batting practice. And even through the course of the season, I throw batting practice, and I'll help Bobby Dickerson out, who's the infield coach, with some of the infielders, because he and I both had worked with some of these younger players coming up through the system. So it's great for me. I still get the taste of the on-field, and this will be my 3rd year doing the broadcasting. I'm still learning, so it's fun, to be able to pick up new things. I'm really lucky because I work with some of the best in the business. Gary Thorne, of course, Jim Palmer, and Jim Hunter. So they help me. They help me every step of the way, and I'm really enjoying this experience.
Mike Bordick with us here on Downtown. We'd be remiss not to talk about John Winkin, who passed away recently, and such a remarkable coach. His record speaks for itself, but from a personal perspective, what did John Winkin mean to you in your career?
Well, he was probably one of the single greatest influences I could have had. He took a chance on me. I went to high school at Hamden Academy, living in Winterport, Maine, and not many kids get a chance coming from small towns to play at a nationally recognized program like the University of Maine was back in the early '80s, and he gave me an opportunity. He surrounded me with some great people, Jeff Paul, Eddie Hackett, Billy Reynolds, some great Maine players that had already proven themselves as winners. And he thought or believed that if I was kind of immersed in that kind of atmosphere, that I could potentially, take off. And I certainly felt like those are the biggest 3 years of my life. I mean, it helped me grow, into a more well-rounded player. I was very fundamentally sound, and when I took a chance and left after my junior year, I didn't really know what to expect, but I did know that I knew how to play the game of baseball, and I was confident. I'd gone to the College World Series twice under Coach Winkin, and he believed in me, he trusted me, and that's exactly the same attitude I took when I went into minor league baseball. And I think a lot of coaches and in the Oakland A's organization saw that, and they thought that was a great way to play, and they kind of kept climbing me through the organization. So, and finally on to the big league. So I owe all that to Coach Winkin. He was so passionate about the game, and when he came on the field to work with players, or every day, even when he was in his office, you could just have a great sense of his energy, and that rubbed off on all the players, not just me. And I think that's something that we all take into our lives now. Being prepared, being passionate about what you do, and bring the energy that you need to bring to have success.
Everybody we talked to about Wink had a story. Have you got a favorite John Winkin story that you can share with us?
Oh, my goodness. There are so many. When I played for Coach Winkin, I was so respectful of him, and I think like most of us were, that I didn't really have a relationship per se. I was a player that respected my coach and did whatever he asked. So I didn't really get caught up in a lot of I know there were times that happened, Coach Winkin has a unique voice, and when he got upset, his unique voice would come to the forefront. But what I remember most in the stories that, I like to share the times after I played there, when I got to talk to him as a former player, as a player that, like he thought of all of his former players, very proud of, and he could talk about our families and what we were doing. And when I went and visited Coach Winkin after he had his stroke in Waterville, we sat down for a long time and just had great talks about, the former teams and our experiences in Omaha, and talking about our family and our kids, and those are the best times.
And that was former University of Maine Black Bear, Baltimore Oriole, now current Orioles broadcaster Mike Bordick from earlier in the week on Downtown with Rich Kimball. You're listening to the Best of Downtown here for the 24th day of August 2014. Glad to have you alongside us again in this early morning edition. Still a lot of great talk left to come on the Best of Downtown, including some Patriots talk after the break with Tim Whelan. We'll also hear from Zuri Berry giving some more perspective on the Patriots with just one more week in the preseason to go. Legendary basketball player and eventually official in the NBA, Bob McAllister, will be joining us later on the program. And our good friend Gary Tanguay of Comcast Sportsnet New England will also be on the program as we progress here up until 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. But as I mentioned, Tim Whelan Jr. of the Metro West Daily News talking Pats when we come back after the break here as you're listening to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket, the best of downtown.
It's the best of downtown, a previously recorded edition of the show on this Sunday morning. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole with you, 92.9 The Ticket and 92.9theticket.com. 3 preseason games under their belt for the New England Patriots as they get set in a couple of weeks for the season opener. Lots of Patriots talk this week on the show as we close in on the start of football season, including a conversation with our friend Tim Whelan Jr. of the Metro West Daily News.
Definitely, one big upgrade right there with Dominic Easley with their first-round pick. A lot of people thought they would go D-line, and they did. And then you look in the defensive backfield. That's really what they focused on improving. They looked at, who knows how much they were looking at the Seahawks as a model, but after watching that Super Bowl, it's hard not to see them as a model. You want big, physical defensive backs, so that really helps you out. And you just look at, with Brady's window, how many people mention that and how many think that he needs to have these big offensive weapons, but really you look at how they did it in the early part of this century, and it was defense first and strong running game and pick your spots on offense.
Yeah, you did a great job of breaking down some of the receiving numbers in their more successful years, and they haven't always needed to have a guy go out and catch 110 passes a year to have an effective offense.
Right, not even half that sometimes. You had 2003, I think it was Deion Branch leading the team with about 56 catches, I think I said, and David Givens in 04 with about 57. So, it just it looks like, they had at that time they also had Corey Dillon, who they called Clock Killing Corey Dillon, so he was able to really grind out yards, and the defense was filled with guys who were going to be lined up for, the Red Jackets in the Patriots Hall of Fame. Ty Law just got in, and you have Bruce already got in, and McGinnis. So it's really about now with this defense establishing its own identity, and with the pieces, if they can, the big if they can stay healthy, Gerard Mayo coming back from his pectoral injury, Vince Wilfork, who's been out there at OTAs, even in limited action, that's another big if, but he's really an X factor, I think, this year, if he can give them something.
What does the signing of James Anderson do this week? Is that give them depth, or is he a guy who can be out there a whole lot of snaps and make a big difference?
He can make a huge difference. I'm not exactly sure why he hung around so long in free agency. He was, after being cut by the Bears, it was really a cost-cutting move, but he led the Bears in tackles last year. He's a steady vet. Mayo is kind of the elder statesman on that linebacking core, but you have Anderson, who basically Luke Kuechly down in Carolina credits with a lot of his success. So I think it's more than a depth add. I think he'll be great for Dante Hightower. It's also insurance if Hightower, a lot of times the coaches will tell you, a lot of what Dante does, you don't see with the naked eye. You have to kind of wait to see him on film. Because sometimes Dante Hightower, it's looked a little up and down. It wasn't this sure thing first-round pick out of Alabama. He hasn't always made the impact plays you're looking for out of that position, but a guy like Anderson could be a good mentor to him.
We're talking with Tim Whelan Jr., Metro West Daily News. Patriots talk here this afternoon. And in your conversation with the receivers, it was mentioned that having a good defense can also make the receivers better, too.
Oh, yeah. Julian Edelman really emphasized that. And he was quick. He kind of caught himself. He said, you had these great cornerbacks. Well, we had great cornerbacks last year, too, so it seems like with those players, if you ask them about an individual, they'll always kind of couch it and mention everybody. So, yeah, Edelman, but you're getting that from a lot of the guys. That Revis, if you see him out there, they don't even throw to his side. And that's just in practice. I think it'll only make the receivers better, and, if possible, I know this column from Sam Monson in Pro Football Focus notwithstanding, it could make Brady better, seeing Darrelle Revis every day in practice.
Well, Amendola had some moments last year where he looked terrific, but just not on the field enough and not able to get the kind of production they'd hoped for. Are they still committed to him?
They are. I mean, a lot of it's a money thing. They were on the hook for a lot of money if they let him go, but I think he deserves a second year. I think no one knows his own, what's said about him a lot more than him, and I think it can be a sensitive subject for him. This is his livelihood, so it could be a sensitive subject for anybody. But I think they are committed to him when he's out there, he is a tough player, and he really can make plays. And year one in the Patriots system, you look at veteran receivers coming in, really not since 2007 has a veteran receiver come in and had a lights-out year in the first year. And there were three guys that year. There was, Moss, Welker, and Stallworth. But, you look at Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco at the time, Joey Galloway in 2009. They cut him after 3 games. He couldn't get on the same page. Even Brandon Lloyd, he had 72 catches in 2012, but I think he only caught about 56% of the balls thrown his way. So, and it takes a while, I guess, to pick up this offense, and that's what we're seeing with Brandon LaFell as well. Sorry, I got that's a little bit. And
he mentioned that he's still trying to wrap his head around the playbook, and that's we've seen that. We saw it with Ocho Cinco, certainly, that can be a huge challenge for some of these guys who come in.
It can be, and I think that's what LaFell is trying to master right now. Although he had a great, they did some red zone offense yesterday, and he had a great catch in the back of the end zone. You can't look at one play. It's not even mini camp yet. This is OTAs. But, and the guys aren't even wearing jerseys. I don't know if you knew this, that they wear T-shirts, and they'll practice on the far field, so we have to, use the binoculars and check out their, jersey number on their shorts or helmet. It's pretty funny. But, he's a guy that could really help them out, but recent history isn't quite, he's not a guy you should expect to go in there. I compared him to a third or fourth starter on a baseball team. You can't rely on him for the bulk of the workload. You just have to hope that he can contribute when he's in there, because his career high is 49 catches.
And that was Tim Whelan of the Metro West Daily News talking a little New England Patriots football with us. Just one more preseason game left to go before we get things underway for real. The New England Patriots will be taking on the New York Giants at the Meadowlands coming up on Thursday, which means no downtown show coming up on Thursday. We will be with you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday next week as we prepare you not just for that preseason football game, but whatever is going on in the sports world. And, of course, previewing the big season opener for the University of Maine Black Bears, your reigning CAA football champions. Take another break here on the Best of Downtown program for this 24th day of August 2014. When we come back on the other side, we'll talk to radio great, basketball great, and former NBA official Bob McAllister. He'll join us when we come back after the break here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
I know what boys like. I know what guys want. I know what boys like. I got what boys like.
Back on the Best of Downtown, your Sunday morning, August 24th. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole here with you until 7 o'clock this morning. Happy birthday to Mason Williams today. If you're old enough to remember the old Smothers Brothers show, and huge hit from 1968, Classical Gas. Mason Williams, 76 years old today, along with former Senator Max Cleland, also a highly decorated Vietnam veteran as well. Max Cleland, 72 years old today. Well, speaking of great veterans, we've got one on the show here this morning that we had on earlier this week. Bob McAllister, a tremendous career, one of the best ever to play basketball, a John Bapst Hall of Famer from the class of 1959, went on to a distinguished broadcasting career in Bangor, and then off to the NBA as a longtime official. Bob McAllister, still active in basketball as an evaluator of officials out on the West Coast. We had a chance to visit with him this week on Downtown.
Back in those days, there wasn't the life of the computer. There wasn't the, the Twix machines and everything. And the kids didn't have that much to do, and people didn't have that much to do. So their entertainment was going to ball games and supporting their local high school, which we had great support.
Just from a basketball standpoint, because you continue to watch the game so closely, are skills as good as they were back then, or different?
I think the players are different. I think the young people of today, especially out where I am in Oregon, they can do so much more with the ball. And in college, I can see them do much more with the ball, where, a la Michael Jordan could leave the free throw line and dunk from there, where some of the kids we have out there in high school are pretty close to that now. Where back when I played, you only had guys like Pete Kelly from Caribou that could go up over the top of the rim. Bob DeGrasse couldn't. I don't think Pud Robinson could from Brewer, but Pete Kelly was the only one that I saw could go up over the rim. But when I'm out in Oregon now, boy, all of them can go up over the rim. Even some of the girls can go up over the rim because the game has progressed so far from where it was.
Of course, we've got the new Cross Center now. It's a beautiful facility, but the Bangor Auditorium near and dear to the hearts of a lot of people. Do you have any favorite auditorium memories?
I do. I like the Bangor Auditorium, especially down at the far end. That was the best basket I could shoot at. And I want to get in to see the Cross Center because I have, so much pride and everything in the old place that I understand that this Cross Center is a beautiful place to play a game. So I want to get in and see it. But I had my favorite spot down at the far end was my favorite place to shoot.
After basketball, you went on to start a very successful broadcasting career as Bob Diamond.
Right, I did.
On WGY for many years.
I went to the University of Rhode Island for 1 year, and it turned out to be that college wasn't for me. And while I was down there, I started working on the college radio station, and gee, I liked that. So when I come back home, I had a chance to go on WGUI here as Bob Diamond, and I started in the mornings, and then about 2 or 3 years later, they moved me up to afternoons 2 to 6. So I spent most of my time right there as Bob Diamond 2 to 6 at WGUI.
Now, who are some of the guys who were on the air at GUI at the time?
Bob Dow was the morning man. Jack Dalton was the afternoon man at the first go-around. And then everybody, when they see me, they say, "Oh, you're that guy that locked himself in the control room and played West of the Wall." No, I wasn't.
That wasn't
No,
you.
that was not me. That was Jack Dalton. I was part of it.
You've been associated with that Tony
I
Fisher
have.
story for
so many
years.
people have said, "Guys, no, I'm not. I'm not the guy that did that." It was Jack Dalton, and out of the clear blue sky, he did it, and I had to help out because we had to keep the door locked, and I was doing news breaks in between. And then all of a sudden, we had the police department calling us saying, "What is going on down there?" Because they had every telephone line jammed on Exchange on Central Street, and because their businesses couldn't use their phones because people were calling in to say what's wrong with and it was quite a thing. It was a good thing.
We're talking with Bob McAllister here on Downtown. Now, you said before we came on, you'd done some high school officiating, middle school Y tournaments here in Maine, and you continued to do that when you moved out west. But how do you make that leap from high school to the NBA?
Well, as the district manager in the Nestle Company, I had gotten season tickets to the Portland Trail Blazers. They were just starting out, and I would use those for customers and everything. So my wife and I got to go to the Blazer games all the time. So I'd sit there, and instead of watching most of the game, I would watch the officials. So I went home one night, and I told her, I said, I'm better than those two guys on the floor right now, and I'm going in the NBA. And she thought I was crazy, and two friends that sat beside me thought I was out of my mind, and I said no. So I'd watch the officials come in, and I said, I'm better than some of those guys. So I applied to the NBA. They sent a scout out to watch me work a couple of high school games, and that summer I got invited to camp down at L.A., and I thought I had a good shot to get in then, but I didn't. So they invited me back to camp the next year, and then in August of 78, Normie Drucker, a supervisor at that time, called me and about 9 o'clock at night and offered me a contract. And so, of course, I took it. And I didn't quite have enough experience at the NBA level. I had Pac-8, West Coast Conference college schedule, but it was a lot different from the NBA as to what you'd call, what you'd let go. And I had a hard time adjusting to, calls that that's a travel. I don't care how you look at it. That's a travel. But, of course, it wasn't in the NBA. And so I had a hard job adjusting, and I had a good first half year. I was probably out of 18 rookies that they took in that year, I was probably number 3 or 4, and I thought I had a good chance. But second half of the year, something happened. I just didn't referee well. And so the NBA bosses, which are the owners and general managers, they didn't feel, that was the first year they went in with the 3-man system. And they didn't feel, for the money that they had to put out for the 3-man system, they didn't feel they got enough out of it. So they said, that's it. We tried it. We don't like it, so we're going to drop it. And they kept 3 of the rookies that year, and I wasn't one of the 3. But then that next year, they called me back and said, the referees are going on strike. Will you work? And I said, yeah, I will work, provided it's either Portland or Seattle. I said, I'm not in a position, because I had gotten a job back in the food business, I said, I'm not in a position to travel around the country. So I just worked Portland and Seattle, and I did fly down and work San Francisco and L.A. on weekends. And so I worked about another 14 or 20 games that next year on the strike.
And that was great basketball player here in the state of Maine, Bob McAllister, who went on to later become an NBA official. Thanks for Bob for his time early last week on the Downtown with Rich Kimball radio program, as you're listening to the Best of Downtown, where we take all the best guests from the week that was, compile them into 1 hour, and play them for your pleasure. Taking another break here. When we come back, though, we'll check in with Zuri Berry of the Boston Globe and Boston.com. We'll do a little bit more of a New England Patriots preview here as we have one last game before the preseason ends. Thank you. I'm glad to not be watching much more of this preseason football because I'm just ready to get the real thing underway here in just a couple of weeks' time. So we'll check in with Zuri when we come back from the break here as you're listening to Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and the Best of Downtown.
Don't hang around and let your problems surround you. There are movie shows downtown. Maybe you know some little places to go to.
Best of Downtown. Sunday morning, a previously recorded edition of the show. Guess who's got a birthday today, Stack? And the hint is wrestling.
Wrestling birthday.
Mm-hmm.
In the yesteryears or current?
Well, both.
Ooh.
Both.
Can't be Hulk Hogan because he celebrated a birthday recently.
No, and not known primarily as a wrestler, although he got in some scuffles along the way.
Okay. You got to tell me now.
Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon, yeah. I believe he actually won the championship at one point, though, and he was jacked back in the heydays in the late 90s.
And all natural, too.
Yeah. Not a billionaire anymore.
No.
But still a multi-millionaire.
But enjoying his birthday today. Happy 69th birthday.
Wow.
To Vince McMahon.
69, huh?
No, it's hard to believe. How about that? Happy birthday to him on this 24th day of August. Up next year on Downtown, more Patriots football talk as the Pats now 3 games behind them in the preseason, 1 more to go. Still some questions to be answered about this club before they break camp for the season opener in a couple of weeks. We talked about that and more on Thursday with the Boston Globe's Zuri Berry.
Tons and tons of questions need to be answered, some of which I think they started addressing today. I mean, they released the tight end DJ Williams, so we've been sort of circling the wagons about what's the deal with the tight end position, and it's becoming a little bit more and more clear. I think it's going to be de-emphasized this year, and that there probably are going to keep more wide receivers than we expect, and that's a good thing because I don't know if you've been looking at this roster and diagnosing sort of how many wide receivers there are and how many of them are actually good, but there's quite a few, and they've been playing pretty well in the preseason. So the more that they can keep, the better. So I think people are going to be paying attention to that tomorrow against the Panthers. There's also the issue of the strong safety position, which has not been, I would say, filled with anybody who's like a front rider all the way up until this point. I mean, we're still sort of trying to figure out who's going to be that guy. It's been Kyle Arrington. Early on, we thought it was Duron Harmon. Logan Ryan has gotten his shot there. It could be any number of people, Patrick Chung as well, Tavon Wilson. So I think depending upon the snaps and how guys play this upcoming tomorrow, I think that'll give us a better idea who's going to start opposite of Devin McCourty. So you have those sort of position groups that I would think are possibly could affect others with the number of players that either do well or do poorly.
Well, at that wide receiver position, we've got a cheering interest up here with former Maine Black Bear Derek Johnson in the mix, although obviously a long shot going in. But does he have any opportunity to maybe get a practice squad spot?
Yeah, I think practice squad is definitely what he would be rooting for, and it's probably why he's still around at this point in time. I do not think that he has a chance of making the 53-man roster. He could very well be a 75-man cut on Tuesday. That's good for him if he can either get picked up somewhere else or possibly stick around in the Foxborough area and see if he's one of those 10 guys that they want to help develop. I do think that there is competition in the sense that they drafted a guy in Jeremy Gallen. He's just now getting back healthy. They also have Wilson Van Hooser, who they sort of like, although there's nothing particularly spectacular about him. But between those guys and whoever would fall off from the wide receiver competition as it currently stands, I think those are some really good candidates for the practice squad, as well as another tight end. I'm sure that they'll keep one just in their back pocket. So he's definitely in the running in that sense, and hopefully he can do something tomorrow night that proves himself.
With the possible de-emphasizing of that tight end position, will we see any of Rob Gronkowski in a preseason game?
I think it's very possible that we do see him. I do think that this team and Coach Bill Belichick have never shied away from the fact that they think that guys need to be prepared before they do everything. And whether that means he's just out there for a little bit, they want to make sure that he gets that full preparation before week one in the regular season. Now, that means that he may not be out there tomorrow. He may be out for the week 4 preseason game against the New York Giants and get a little work in then. I think folks are more likely to see Aaron Dobson out there than they will Rob Gronkowski, and that's okay. I think they feel comfortable with Steve Maneri. I think they feel comfortable with Justin Jones just for the time being. Again, we're not talking about 2 tight end sets all the time anymore here. We're more likely going to see more 3 wide receiver, more 4 wide receiver sets, and guys like James Devlin filling in when others can't. So until Gronk is back in full, which we expect to be for week 1, it'll be a little bit less of that.
We're talking with Zuri Berry of the Boston Globe. They, of course, won't say it publicly, but is there a sense that the Patriots realize they've got a rapidly closing window with Tom Brady at 37 years old?
I think they realized it as soon as they drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that was the acknowledgement there that hey, this, he's 36 going on 37 now. We have to start planning for the future as well, and Coach Bill Belichick said as much in the press conference following Garoppolo's draft. And that's something that I think we also can consider when you looked at the short game. You draft Garoppolo for the long term, but in the short term you had to address your secondary, which was porous the last few years, and getting people like Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner and making sure you're set there. I think that's the I'm going for it all this year kind of situation, especially with the way his contract is structured. I'm talking about Revis. So I think that they are very much concerned about making sure they take advantage of the window because, as you know, the transition to a new quarterback, it's never really very smooth, and we haven't seen it happen well too many times. I think Aaron Rodgers, even though he's a fantastic quarterback, that transition wasn't great necessarily. So they're looking at that right now, and that's what's obvious to me based on their moves, that they are trying to win now, so that they don't have to, scramble in the years after Tom Brady is done, whether that's in 3 or 4 years or 5 years.
Obviously, keyed by the pickup of Revis in the offseason, there's a lot of excitement about this defense. Is that optimism that the fans have justified?
I believe so. I think partly we're to blame, being in the press, that we are a little high on it as well. But it's been fantastic to watch guys like Revis and Browner work, and I think you saw as well in the last couple of weeks with the number of flags that there's sort of that, because of their physical nature, I think Revis is a little more skilled, but for Browner, because of his physical nature and whatnot, maybe we shouldn't be so high. And I think that at the end of the day, the refs are going to let these guys play, particularly down the stretch of the season, and you're going to see the skills of these players really shine, and that's going to help the team dramatically. I mean, early on in the year, last year, the Patriots were a top 5 defense, and then they ran into a string of injuries, both to Vince Wilfork, Gerard Mayo, Tommy Kelly. It basically decimated them in the middle of the defense, and as well as with leadership. And I think now that they have these veterans coming back, these talented players coming in, and younger guys getting better, I think there's a great deal of reason to be optimistic about that, and I think it's shown itself very well in training camp, and it's going to continue into the season. And barring any injury, we should see them in the top 4 this year.
And that was Zuri Berry of the Boston Globe and Boston.com on the New England Patriots, as we just have one more preseason game left to go before the season opener, and the New England Patriots begin their season looking to hoist another Lombardi trophy. We'll take another break on the program. When we come back, we'll check in with one of our favorites. We always love talking to Gary Tanguay. He's definitely one of our top guests of all time, just because of the frequency he comes on the program and the great information he also gives every time he's on the show. And last week was no different. So we'll hear that conversation with Rich and Gary coming up here after the break, as you're listening to the Best of Downtown here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Life ain't all that easy, I can testify to.
It's Best of Downtown, your Sunday morning. Rich Kimball, Brian Stackpole, 92.9 The Ticket, and worldwide at 929theticket.com. Yeah, celebrating another day of living, celebrating the birthday of Cal Ripken Jr., who turns 54 years old today. Craig Kilborn. Are you old enough to remember Craig Kilborn, Stack?
It sounds familiar.
ESPN, and then he was the original guy on The Daily Show.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember it
and
now.
Has done a little bit of acting, too. Kilborn turns 52 years old today, among those celebrating a birthday today. Also with us this week on the program, our good friend Gary Tanguay of Comcast Sports Net New England. We talked a little Patriots, a little everything, as we always do with Gary Tanguay here on Downtown.
Well, that's true, and one of the things I will say that Belichick did tell the officials, he told them to throw the flags a lot, and he told them to do it during the week when the refs were there with Philadelphia. Throw the flags, brainwash these guys, ingrain it into their mind what they're going to get flagged for. So hopefully that was one of the reasons why we saw so many flags, and we're not going to see it during the regular season. But there's no question. I mean, Bill likes his privacy. The crowds are gone, and the autographs are gone, and all that stuff. And he's very happy when it's just him and the team.
So what do we know about this team halfway through preseason?
Well, I think that we know that the defense is going to be really good. I'm convinced of that because Reed doesn't have to prove me anything. One of the things that we've seen is that Brown is going to be gone for the first 4 games. So, I think people forget how good Dennard is and how good he played at cornerback. So I still think that he has something left. He's got a lot left. So I still think Alfonso Dennard is going to be a really important part of this. I think that Revis is going to make the defensive line better. You've got May. He's healthy. He's had some personal issues. That's why he was away last week. So I'm fine with the defense. The offense, they've got to get the line straightened out a little bit. They've had some hiccups. Stork was back practicing today. So Connolly and Wendell have been the center, but it would be nice to get a center. It'd be nice to say, okay, Stork, you're going to be the center for the next 10 years or 8 years, or get some consistency there. If there are any questions to me, it comes down to Gronkowski. He said today that he's ready to go play all 16. So it really comes down to his health. And, they don't have any other tight ends. So if Gronk's not in there, they'll use Devlin, they'll use another offensive lineman, tight end eligible. But right now it's Gronk and to see how he helps the offense.
How short will be the leash for Stephen Ridley?
That's a great question. Short, I think. You also have White in camp. Vereen is going to play a lot. We all know that he's a weapon. When Bolden's got a chance when he's had a chance to run, he's run well. He just doesn't stay healthy. Of course, he had the PED suspension. So, I think if White can prove worthy, I think that the leaf is extremely short for Ridley. But somebody's going to prove it, Somebody's going to prove that they can step up and do it, because the thing that I said to Bob just moments ago, was on the show tonight, is that, Ridley's kind of like, you're with a beautiful girl and you're going to kiss her and you find out she has bad breath. Because he does everything so well except hang on to the ball.
Now, as we get a couple of weeks left here in preseason, really is there an interesting positional battle beyond the battle for number 2 quarterback between Mallett and Garoppolo?
Oh, I know. That's so much fun. Oh, my God, what a blast that conversation is. Because it really, listen, if Brady goes down, you're screwed. I think the wide receiver position, there's a couple of guys that I think have jumped up on the depth chart. I think Tim's has proven himself. He's going to serve a 4-game suspension, though. I also think that Tompkins and Brady have developed a real relationship where I think Boyce is going to be the odd man out. Perhaps Tompkins is even ahead of Dobson now. So now you may have Julian Edelman, you may have Amendola, you may have Tompkins. So Tompkins has a chance to separate himself from that wide receiver pack because Brady has a lot of faith in him.
Well, with an improved defense, I look around the rest of the AFC. Yeah, there's Denver, but I don't see anybody that presents an obstacle that can't be overcome by this team for a chance to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. I mean, to me, it's Super Bowl or bust. It really is. The reason they went after, obviously, they went defense because, you know, you win in the regular season with offense, but you win the game you need to win in the postseason with defense. And they haven't been able to stop anybody. I mean, when Talib would get hurt, they went from being a very good defense to being an awful defense. And then you had Mayo get hurt, and Vince and Kelly went down, so there were a lot of injuries. But still, in this pass-happy age, if you got a corner that has some ability, that's huge. And now they do, you know. They do. So I agree. And, you know, it's another thing else, Rich. You know, if Revis has a good year, they're going to rip up, well, that $25 million option for next year, he's not getting paid that. So they'll rip that up, and they'll try to negotiate a long-term deal, but he's going to want a lot of money. So if Revis, you know, Revis is here for a year, that we know. To me, they're in a must-win situation. Brady's 37. In 2 years, I think Gronk is probably going to end up walking because they won't want to pay him the rest of his contract. And then Revis, I think, is going to want the moon next year. I think this is a must-win year for the Patriots.
Gary Tanguay of Comcast Sportsnet New England talking a little Sox, a little Patriots there earlier in the week from downtown. One final break of this best of edition, and on the other side, we'll preview what's to come for a 4-day week on downtown, and also tell you what's going to be coming up for the guest list on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so much more. You're listening to the best of downtown here as we roll on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Getting set to put the wrap on things for this Sunday morning Best of Downtown show. We thank you for getting up early, checking in with us here. We do it every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 on Sports Radio, 92.9 The Ticket, and, of course, 92.9theticket.com, all over the planet. Little Boz Skaggs here for you. Boz coming to town. Going to be coming to the area a little later on in the fall. Looking forward to that show.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. It should be a great one. Yeah. Great musician.
Yep. Have to see if we can get him on the program, too.
Yeah, we'll have to start getting those wheels in motion.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks to everybody on the show today. Mike Bordick, Baltimore Orioles broadcaster. Tim Whelan of the Metro West Daily News. Basketball legend Bob McAllister. Zuri Berry of the Globe. And Gary Tanguay of Comcast Sportsnet New England. Don't forget Dale Duff and Clem Labrie. Start your day tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on the morning pitch. We are live on downtown tomorrow afternoon at 4. And it is game week for the Maine Black Bears, so we'll begin our weekly check-ins with Maine coach Jack Cosgrove, 4:15 tomorrow afternoon. Also on the show, Alan Adams of the Maine Edge, reviewing movies as he always does on Pass the Popcorn. But a new side of Alan tomorrow, the last of our opening round rap battles on the Downtown Throwdown, as Alan Adams and comedian Ryan Waning go head-to-head. And all I know is this, we've heard Alan's. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Only a couple people have heard this rap so far, and it is tremendous. Ryan, you have a lot to live up to.
If you haven't heard our rap battles, we've had a blast. We thank everybody who's been a part of it. You'll hear the final of the opening round, Alan and Ryan Waning, tomorrow afternoon on the program as we get ready for lots and lots of football talk as the Maine Black Bears open in just 6 days against Norfolk State. Thanks for being with us this morning. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock for Downtown here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter. brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. No finer place for sure. Downtown.